Campaigning. Abdul Jalil Al-Singais, Bahrain. Bahrain is a tough place to be an activist. Peaceful protesters are frequently arrested, and journalists can face imprisonment for simply criticising the government. Particularly brave is Dr. Abdul Jalil Al-Singais, one of the so-called Bahrain 13, who face a lifetime in jail after peacefully calling for civil and political rights and justice. In 2010, Singais travelled to the UK to testify to the House of Lords on his country's human rights record. Returning home, he was detained at Bahrain International Airport. He has since faced systematic ill treatment and torture behind bars. He has been beaten, sexually assaulted, and subjected to solitary confinement. And he has been repeatedly denied access to medication, his family, and even pens and paper. What really sets Singais apart is his refusal to relent. In 2015, he staged a 313-day hunger strike. Despite suffering from chronic diabetes, he was determined to campaign for free expression and for the rights of his fellow inmates.
As an engineer, a professor, forsaking what could be a very comfortable, easy life to throw himself into the cause of human rights, dignity, with all the danger, with all enduring torture, but not giving up. I think that is worth saluting.
Vanessa Barhay, Eritrea. This determined 19-year-old is campaigning against the illegal detention of her photojournalist uncle, Seyum Sehe, and all unjustly imprisoned individuals in Eritrea. Born in Sweden, Barhay founded the organisation One Day Seyum when she was still at school, aiming to pressure the government to share information of her uncle's whereabouts. An outspoken and popular figure committed to bringing democracy to his country, Barhay's uncle was arrested in 2001 whilst planning a photography exhibition on his country's 30-year war with Ethiopia. More than a decade later, Barhay felt that her uncle was being forgotten. She set about raising awareness of his story, alongside the many other victims of the Eritrean dictatorship, one of the world's worst human rights offenders. Barhay's campaigning has been persistent, imaginative, and impactful, bringing together supporters from her schoolmates to the Pope to draw attention to a country whose refugees form a significant yet underreported part of the migrant crisis.
The campaign of Vanessa Barhay, it just completely moves you. She's conducting this campaign to save her uncle, to take him out of prison. In this way, very simple and very straightforward, she's defying the most censored country in the world.
Bolo Bhi, Pakistan. Meaning speak up in Urdu. Bolo Bhi is a female-led pressure group which fights for government transparency, digital security, privacy and equality in Pakistan. Founded by Fareya Aziz and Sana Salem in 2012, Bolo Bhi has recently focused on challenging internet censorship, taking on the authoritarian Pakistan Telecommunications Authority, which regulates the internet, and campaigning intensively against the draconian Protection Against Electronic Crimes Bill. In 2015, the group organised an extraordinary campaign of events, lobbying, press conferences and online actions. They brought international attention to a landmark bill that would otherwise have been pushed through with little public awareness.
I really like the ladies at Bolo Bhi. They're really using their insight into digital to try change the law, to ensure that people get access to content. I think furthermore, well, look, it's two women doing this in a country that it sometimes can be very difficult.
Nkoselathi Emmanuel Moyo, Zimbabwe. Growing up in a small mining town in Zimbabwe, Moyo witnessed firsthand how young people were being manipulated for political power. He set up the Zimbabwe Organization for Youth in Politics to tackle the Mugabe regime and fight for human rights and free expression. Moyo's organisation has since trained 80 human rights defenders and worked with over 2,500 youths across remote and rural communities in Zimbabwe. Also a prolific writer, 28-year-old Moyo has published 4 best-selling books about Mugabe's regime. The last, written while sheltering in the Netherlands for his safety, was published immediately on his return home. It won him threats of violence for its satirical criticism of Mugabe and his wife Grace. Moyo fled to South Africa, where he is still in hiding.
What's so fantastic for me about this guy is that it's a grassroots thing. So he's reaching dozens and dozens of other kind of campaigners and human rights activists. So he's kind of setting the groundwork for a whole new generation of vocal activists to step up and stand out and talk.
Pu Zhixiang, China. A student participant in the 1989 Tiananmen Square protests, Pu Zhiqiang is one of China's most prominent human rights lawyers. Pu earned himself the nickname Robin Hood, defending campaigners including earthquake activist Tan Zhuoren, Tibetan environmentalist Karma Sandro, and banned writers and artists including Chen Guidi and Ai Weiwei. Pu is also well known for campaigning for an end to shuangui, a form of arbitrary detention without legal representation, commonly used against party officials who are accused of corruption. As part of a government crackdown against human rights lawyers, Pu was arrested for causing a disturbance by attending a small Tiananmen Square memorial in 2014. Whilst being detained for 19 months, his charges were switched to allegedly picking quarrels with authorities on social media. Handed a 3-year suspended prison sentence in late 2015, Pu has been muzzled. Effectively unable to practice law, he is in danger of being silenced forever.
This is a lawyer who started off as an activist in Tiananmen Square, and he's been entirely consistent in speaking out where he sees corruption, where human rights are being violated, and he's operating in China. He's a really phenomenal, inspirational man.